hospitality is love. Hospitality is really just love, just filling the gaps. It's really seeing a need and filling a need. And whether it's beautiful or not, it doesn't matter.
Hi, it's your friend Lizzy, and welcome to the Lean In With Lizzy podcast. I have to share something you may not know about me. One of the things I love to do the most, and one of the top things that scares me the most, is hosting. I always get so excited to have people over, but then when it actually comes down to it, I'm a ball of stress. You can ask Dave. But I've been in people's homes where hosting comes so naturally. And I'm not talking about people who invite you over to a pristine home that always looks perfect. I'm talking about the kind of people who can instantly make you feel at home in their home. Today's guest is one of those unicorns who makes everyone feel loved and home. I'm so excited for what she taught me today, and I know you'll get a lot out of this episode too, because the fact is, we need more people who are comfortable inviting people in. Katie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. So good to be here.
This is so fun. We've known each other for a long time.
Yes.
From, I feel like, a whole different stage of life when I lived out in Connecticut and we were working on other projects. And it's just kind of selfishly a gift to have you on to be in the same room as you right now.
Oh, I was so excited when you asked me. I've loved all your podcasts so far. So this is so fun for me.
Okay, so tell us and everybody listening in a little bit about yourself. Background, what you're up to right now, stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay, my biggest thing is I'm a wife and mother. It really is one of my biggest things. I graduated in human development and family studies from the University of Utah. Don't hold it against me.
I also did family studies, but at BYU.
Okay, good.
We'd have to compare what we were taught differently.
Yes, I know. But I just kind of grew up at the doorstep of the U and grew up from This Is the Place Park. So it just kind of is in my bones, Salt Lake, Utah, all the feels, and just loved growing up there. And then I just lived in the same zip code my whole life until we moved to Arizona. And that was like one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my entire life is move to a zip code. And everything in Arizona says like, go away. Like all the plants, when you get out of out of your car, they're just prickly. And that ended up just being like such a beautiful experience for me. And I would say where I really kind of found myself, I had just had 2 daughters at the time. And then where I started a business and it was a women's accessories business. And we went to market in Dallas and Atlanta and New York and LA. And that was like one of the most thrilling experiences of my life. And I really decided I loved entrepreneurship and have just had several businesses. Looking back, I handed dressed wedding invitations for brides for like 10 years. I did that while my babies were sleeping, moved to Arizona, did that big business. It kind of was just the thrill of my life. And then since then have just dabbled in other things. My heart right now is interfaith work still with Multiply Goodness. That is just one of those things I'm always going to be so grateful for. So wife and mother, entrepreneur, I just love to gather, which is why I'm here today and excited to talk to you about all that. So wrote a book with Emily Bell Freeman called The Gathering Home, which is just a little piece of my heart. That was during COVID, which is a really hard time to talk about gathering
Yes.
when you can't really. But that was such a blessing and a gift. And so, yeah.
It's such a beautiful book too.
Thank you.
I love that book so much. You guys did an exceptional job.
Thank you.
So let's start with just the why of gathering, the why of hosting, the why of hospitality.
I love that so much. I think it starts with the doctrine of gathering. And for me, that really just stems from a place of understanding that God gathered us. I mean, for those in our faith, we truly believe that, we were gathered before, in a pre-existent state. And I love that thought that even here we gather in families, we gather in stakes and in wards. And there's such power in that. Gather as neighborhoods. When you gather as a neighborhood, it feels really beautiful. I feel like that's happening a lot this time of year at Christmas time. Wards and neighborhoods coming together. And I feel like just there's such power in recognizing that there is such a gift and a blessing of belonging somewhere. You are a part of something. And I feel like that is something that is like really uniquely special about, I feel about, humanity. We all want to belong and want to feel a part of something. So if I'm thinking about the doctrine of gathering, I'm thinking about Jesus Christ and how he gathered us, as he says, as a hen gathereth his chickens. And I feel like he wants us to feel a part of something. He wants us to belong and to be a part of and to know we are his. And so I think that's where it starts for me.
So beautiful. When I approaching this conversation, I am thinking very small, like, okay, gathering, hosting, that's like me having some people in our home, but expanding that out to like, no, this topic is so much broader than that.
Mm-hmm.
How do we bring people in groups, in big groups and small groups? And why do we need that? And what is that important for? I love that you set the stage of like, think a little bit bigger on what we're talking about right now. And think about even, there's so many studies in the social sciences about why it's important that we belong, why it's important we have groups and communities that we are a part of for our mental health and physical health and all the things. So for sure, this is important in faith communities. For sure, there's a lot of science behind this, the importance of gathering. So what do you want to talk about first on like how I'm picturing the woman, and this is very easy for me to picture because it hits very close to home because it might be me. I love to have people over. I also am so stressed having people over because I think growing up, it was like the house has to be perfect and everything has to look just right. And they're coming over and it's 15 minutes and all hands on deck. I mean, that's exactly what my house sounds like right now. Like that wasn't just growing up. I think I've just brought that back into my home now that with all my kids. And I want to move away from that. My husband has a really natural way of inviting people in, and it's just like, come sit down, come hang out. And he couldn't care less what the house looks like.
Yeah.
He just makes it feel like everyone feels at home in our home if he's there. When he's not there, it's kind of like, I hope everybody likes it. And there's this pressure for me.
Yeah.
How do we go from being that person or the person who just says, I just don't invite people over, period.
Right.
I don't gather at all. Maybe if someone does, and I may not even show up for someone else's, where would you tell them to start?
Oh, it's such a good thing. And, to even have this conversation, because I really do think that gathering can be taught and learned. Like you might not have it. It might not be like a natural thing that comes for you, but we all, I think, have that desire to connect and feel a part of and be a part of and to welcome in. We all have that. If we look deep enough, I think most people really do.
It's a human need.
It's a human
we need that.
That's right.
To thrive, to live. Babies who don't get it don't live, actually.
Yes. Yeah.
If you don't have that belonging. So yeah.
That's right.
We need this.
We do. And we need that face-to-face connection. We need to be able to have conversations that are meaningful and life-giving, and I think there gets to be this point where we have to actually decide what it does look like and what it doesn't look like. And I'm really not going to talk about what it looks like to gather in with decor or any of that. I mean, I would love to talk about mealtime because I think that's really impactful and powerful, because I feel like the table is really important for connecting and for gathering in. But we have so many things out there. We could go to Pinterest, we can go to Instagram, and we will sit and look and think, okay, that's what it needs to look like or should look like. But really, we do ourselves so much a disfavor when we lean too much into that, because it's not always attainable. I don't have the funds oftentimes to create what I see. I don't have the means. I don't have the resources. I don't have the time at times. And so that's where we get hung up. We think it has to look a certain way, when really what we're actually talking about is a feeling, is a connection, and a welcoming in. And I feel like, it could be anybody's house, but if they have a hospitable heart, there's such power in that. There's such power when you feel welcomed in. And it doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter what's served. It doesn't matter if the decor is, top to bottom, like we see on so many social media, sites and things like that. I think what it really comes down to is what's happening in your heart and what's happening, in your home. And I want to talk a little bit about a family culture because I really feel deeply about this. And I feel like we may or may not have been brought up in a family culture that was welcomed in. I was fortunate to have a mom and dad who welcomed in. But I will tell you a little bit about the nature of that. Here's a little bit of a background. So my mom and dad were unable to have children very easily. My mom had an infantile uterus. So she could get pregnant, but she just could not keep those babies. And there was a time between her first and second natural born children, there were 10 years of trying to have babies. And in the middle, they just decided to adopt a baby. And I'm fascinated that anyone that's able to adopt a baby, because I think it's a whole different type of love. I think it's a whole different sort of welcoming in. And then, they had 3 babies pretty close together. One they adopted in between. So I have 2 adopted sisters. And my oldest sister was born a drug baby. They didn't dispel it at the time. You didn't have to tell you that your baby was, stuck on drugs, addicted to drugs, but she certainly was. And that's been her whole life experience. So wow. My whole experience knowing my sister, who's 10 years older than me, is has an addictive personality. There's been some really hard things. I remember some really critical, family nights where we went to go search for our sister. And it was just a part of our family life. But what my family did, and my mom and dad specifically, is there was always a welcoming in, no matter whether or not she was on the run or whether or not she was in and out of drug rehabs or whatever, she was always welcomed back and welcomed in. And that created this feeling, this sense of purpose and love in our home. That was a culture that we knew we will take you as you come. Come as you are. You are welcome to come at any time, no matter when you show up. And that will be our family's culture. And it extended beyond that with my parents showing us how to share. I know this sounds silly, but we had this second home where we would just host parties throughout all the summer. And people would come and they'd bring their families and we'd just host and welcome them in. And that was our family's culture of just, come on in and we'll help create a party for you or create an experience for you that can be binding. And we have chairs and tables. And yeah, if you need to borrow them, sure, we've got 100 chairs and we've got 12 tables you're welcome to borrow at any time. And that just became a part of my family culture that I grew up in. So that when I became older, I wanted to learn these things. I wanted to do these things myself. I wanted to be able to have resources that could be meaningful for people, that could be offered. And I feel like if you want to be that way, you can be. I was fortunate to kind of grow up that way, but also if you want to be the house that has the resources, then offer it. If you want to be the one that has the things that could be borrowed, give them away. Let people use those things and it becomes a part of your family culture and who you are and what you do and what people know you as. It's oh, so-and-so has a funeral. My friend Katie has things you should go borrow. Or you're having a wedding and you're on a budget. Absolutely. Go use those things. And I feel like that's a part of the hospitality, is just resources of who you are, what you have, and your family culture, what you're creating, so that anyone at any time, if they need anything, oh, we got you. We can take care of it. We'll help you. And I feel you create that. You choose that. You are deliberate and intentional in your efforts to have hospitable hearts or a home that is the welcoming in.
It's so fun having guests on who I know at some level, and I see that they're kind of lived experts in certain topics. And then they get in this chair and it's oh my goodness, of course, that's why you are the way you are. I had no idea all these other things that shaped you to be this way. And it's so fun to sit down with you and be
Yeah.
Okay, that's where it started.
Yes.
There's part of the magic. I'm getting to see a little part of the magic.
Yeah.
So one, just offering what you have and being the person that's open to say, hey, we have extra dishes or we have extra chairs and you're welcome to borrow them at any point.
Yeah.
And to see that as a part of being hospitable and hosting and hospitality is not even having your own event.
That's right.
Offering for other people who are going through things, which also could look like cooking a dish for their party or showing up and saying, hey, can I help clean up? Or like you're opening my mind to, there's so many other things. If I'm looking to help others do the same thing, how can I show up and make sure that they have what they need in their times of gathering?
Yeah.
Which is really fun. I've never thought of this.
Yeah. And there's something about like when there's someone in need or in a broken state where they need something, there's an exchange there. Like when you fill a gap for someone that is in specific need, there's such power there. There's I feel like that actually is what hospitality is. It's loving someone as they are. It's welcoming them in to a place where doesn't matter. Like you come and you are a part of us. You can feel loved here. I think hospitality is just filling the gaps. It's really seeing a need and filling a need. And whether it's beautiful or not, it doesn't matter. Some people have a talent to beautify things. I have a talent to beautify things, and I'm grateful for it every day. But also, I had to kind of work through a perfection mindset of walking through and being like, oh, it does not need to look this perfect. And it does not need to, because there is the stress, kind of like what you were saying earlier. You start to be a little stressed about, oh, it should look this way. And when really those expectations, we're putting them on ourselves. And really, we talk about in that book, connection over perfection. And it really is about that. I love it. It sounds like kind of a simple thing to say, but it actually is just about relationships. And the older I get, the more I realize it's really just all about relationships. And then these other things are extrinsic connectors. I'm still going to put my heart into, a Christmas party as best as I can, because I want people to feel. And these things that we do, these extra things, this decor or the food or whatever we do, those are symbolic connectors for us. So the smells, we're like, oh, it just smells so good. Or you see the beautiful food and you're like, this fills me in such a way, or you see how it's beautified and these details, there's love in the details. I really believe it. But it doesn't have to be all that. These things can kind of, they can just add to the hospitality, but you don't have to have anything and you can still be hospitable.
Thinking about the perfectionist dilemma with hosting.
Yeah.
As you were saying that, the things that you do, the sights, the smells, the things that you're touching, the things that you do together can be something you infuse with love. They probably could also be things you infuse with stress.
Yes.
And if the reason I'm doing those, intent may be the key there. If what I'm doing is causing more stress for me, it probably is causing more stress for the people coming too.
That's right.
I don't know, is this appropriate? Should I sit here? They feel that energy, I think, as well when they come in a space of gathering. But if I can flip that to say, oh, I can do those same things, but how can I use those as a token of love for the people who I'm gathering in, whether it's my child?
Yes.
I love that you've broadened this whole perspective. It's not just one family inviting another family, or it's even my own children.
That's right.
And how do I use the things in my home to gather in? Gathering feels more intuitive than hostess and hospitality. That feels all of a sudden like a job and a checklist.
Yes.
Gathering, that's different.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I do feel like from a gospel stand, that gathering in is actually, it's all about people. It's all about bringing people to a place where they feel a part of. And I think it's not just, like you said, family to family. It is at most your own people. It's your people. It's all about that. That's hospitality. And that's where it begins. And that's where you create that culture that feels deeply significant, so that when you do go out, to do all those things, you feel like, or they go out to do their things, they know they're a part of something. They're a part of a family that welcomes in, and that's who they are. And then I love that part about Just that the significance of like learning as you go. Like I also have been stressed out because and I've just been like, I don't know, you don't really know until you start to host. Like it's like, at least when I was a first time mother, I didn't know even what it was like to like make a meal and have everything warm all at once. I had no idea what I was doing. And over time, you become better at it. And you do have to practice this. And I think practice makes better. I don't love practice makes perfect because it's never going to be perfect. And lowering those expectations feels actually like so life-giving. It feels like we actually want to live in grace. We want to live in a place where we are, it's not all going to be perfect all the time or ever. And, but I feel like giving yourself the chance to try it out. And there's been times where I've hosted and I was like, oh, I was super stressed. I did not even enjoy that one bit. And then it took some really, really stressful experiences, like hosting larger events, even my own daughter's wedding in our backyard, and it downpoured like, a half hour before everyone came and then while they were coming. And I was like, this is something else. But I found myself practicing the temperance, which I think is actually also part of this hospitality. I feel like sometimes we are uncomfortable. Like, I don't know, when I'm talking to someone that's different than me, at times I'm petrified. I'm going to say the wrong thing. I don't, I feel like in a cancel culture, sometimes you're so concerned about whether or not your actions will be received well, and I feel like I'm constantly trying to you know, ease into what feels good and right and feels natural, and also where they can feel my genuine love. But we practice this. Like it doesn't come necessarily 100% natural for all of us. Sometimes it does. I know some people that are just born with it. I think there's parts of me that are natural, but other parts that are completely unnatural. So we practice this, we work at it, and we recognize where we can do better. Especially when it's like, okay, I was stressed out at that party I hosted or whatever, and I need to chill out. I need to just be chill, and I just need to sit down and enjoy it. And I think over time you get better and you just start to be like, okay, well, the turkey is burned and it's totally fine. Look at all this other food that's here,
Yeah. And it's so healthy to think of it as a practice.
Yeah.
Because none of us are in a state of like, we've arrived. That's not where we are.
No.
But thinking of gathering as a opportunity to practice interacting with people that aren't like you or showing love in different ways, that's a practice that's worth signing up for. Like that's kind of what we're hoping to be, right? And if that forces you into some positions of practicing and becoming that faster, what a worthwhile pursuit.
That's right.
Really worthwhile. I want to get back to the hospitable heart concept.
Yeah.
And you talking about it actually doesn't start with even gathering one person in. It starts with what's happening inside of you. Could you go into that a little more? And if we don't feel like that's something we're good at, how do you work on that?
I mean, for me, it really comes down to me practicing Jesus. So if you were to sit and consider Jesus and I don't know, how many references are there to him having detours or sitting down and eating with sinners or those type of things? Like if I'm actually truly seeking Jesus, then my heart is turned towards the things that he was turned towards. And it just, as I get to know him and know who he is and what he means to me and to my family, I feel like then I'm able to bring it into a personal place where it's really practicing him. Hospitality is love. Hospitality is really just love. And that's, to simplify it, as best as we can. It's just loving him and loving those around us, no matter how different they are than us. And sometimes the hardest people to love are the people that are most like us, and I feel like we're practicing that personally in our lives, hopefully seeking him and choosing him and also recognizing where we fall short and where we can do better. And there's such power in that. I feel like as you are personally working for a relationship with him, we find it. We find that hospitable heart because we want to be like him.
Okay, that is so beautiful and so actionable. And there's like a manual on it. You can go to the Bible and say, what does this look like?
Yeah.
How did he do this in this situation versus that situation? And even the first story of a miracle that Jesus performs, it's an act of gathering hospitality in service to his mother and in love to those that were around him. And we can think about that. Okay, I don't know how to turn water to wine.
Right.
But what are the things that are in my capacity or that I can ask for heavenly help for some miracle to say, how can I show love and serve and create abundance where there isn't abundance right now and these people around me? But the thought of studying the Bible with the perspective of understanding how to have a heart like his and give that to other people, that sounds exciting.
Yeah.
Like that's a study I want to do a deep dive into with some good friends and say, okay, teach me how to do this. Because that already, if I think of then an experience of gathering in my home, let's say, and that is my perspective as they come to the door instead of, what are they going to think? And Dave, you go say hi instead of me saying hi because you're more comfortable. Just like, how do I show up and see if there's a gap and find a gap to love? All right, the pressure's off. Like, I don't know, nobody cares what you eat if you feel really loved. You don't even care what's on the table.
That's right.
You forget kind of all the other things.
That's right.
Unless they're symbols of love, then maybe you take them as a memento of that thing that made you feel so loved.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so beautiful.
Yeah. And I do feel like with that, like when we're really just choosing him, like it doesn't have to be complicated. And yes to a study always, of him, and yes to a study of like his detours. I'm not kidding. There are so many times, he went a different way and he found someone, and I love that whole thought. It doesn't have to be so planned out. Yes, to the beautiful things that you do plan, but the hospitality that comes in just a conversation with someone. I don't know. I joked years ago, and I actually don't really joke about this, but I shop at Walmart. And one of my main reasons why I shop at Walmart, and a lot of my friends would never even step foot in Walmart. But I go to Walmart because I practice Jesus there. And there are people there different than me, for sure. And I love going. I love interacting with them. I love the things I've been offered to in the parking lot. Like, I'm not kidding. I love it there. And I feel like as we work to kind of put ourselves in these positions where we can practice, it's just, it feels like deep filling. And I think that's what happens when we work to have that hospitable heart. Like, we feel it. We know. That's why we want it, because we know it fills us in a way that almost nothing else can, because it comes down to relationships and connection. And that one phrase that someone said to you when you said something to them, I mean, whatever it is, whatever that exchange is that happens on your day-to-day can be deeply personable and so special.
It's really easy, probably especially in today's culture, to have an us-them perspective. Some of it is fed to us. Some of it is the cancel culture. Some of it's just like we see more of what we already like, and there's a bias towards the things we already know. But it's also just the easy way. And it doesn't matter what your life circumstance is, what demographic you fall into. You're more comfortable with things that you know and that are similar to the way you live, because that's a safe place. It's easy to be safe if it's like, well, I kind of generally know their life, so I know the things I can say and I can't say, and what would be an appropriate question to ask and an inappropriate question to ask. But this is true of all types. I was just watching a really, really cool documentary about prison life. And even in this prison system, they segregated by race. And that was what was comfortable, because you know the things you've grown up with, right?
That's right.
But for you to say, I'm going to intentionally put myself in a situation that I'm more around other than same, and for us to proactively seek that out, whether it's to gather them in or just to go learn so that you have an opportunity to know how to gather people different than you. I've never thought of doing that. And I think I think our world would change if we had that perspective instead of saying, where can I go that I'm same? Where can I actually show up that I'm different? Maybe with only the perspective to learn.
That's right.
Maybe just that. Maybe I have nothing to even offer someone different than me right now, but I can learn about them.
That's right.
And my hospitable heart, my Grinch heart is going to grow a couple sizes.
That's right.
Because there are more people in it. Like I just shoved more things in there and I just forced it to grow and get bigger and love a little differently and bigger.
And I think that's really like seeing humanity. It's seeing people for who they are. I mean, we're all God's children, right? And I love practicing that. It's like, it's so easy to just have our limited view, just like you said, because it's comfortable, because it's what we're familiar with. But really, like, God loves us all the same, 100 million gazillion %. And so when you think about that, it's like, you know what? Why wouldn't I try to love my neighbor better? And you learn something. You become so much more substantive when you do this, because you start to see, oh, the world is so much bigger than what I thought, and there you just become there becomes more to you every time you, like, I think, seek to understand someone's story better. We've often said, when you know someone's story, you can love them better. It's actually so true. It's like me just telling you I have a drug addicted sister that I've had my whole life. You see me in a different way, knowing, oh, I can kind of see now why you maybe are that way, and the more bits we can find about each other, they become these like gems that are just like we hold carefully when we love that person, when we're interacting with that person, knowing that's a really tender part of their life. So I'm going to love them better, knowing I know that. But like, we can't do that without welcoming in, without gathering in somehow, without connecting in a way that feels meaningful. We just can't do that.
So good. So good, Katie. I wanted you to come on the podcast in December for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
We do a lot of hosting and gathering, and this is the time for it if there's ever a time for it, right? But as you're talking, I'm like, actually, this could have been a New Year's episode as we think about who we want to become, not just what we want to do around the holidays. This feels more to me like the feeling I want to have in my heart, which in a couple of weeks, I'm sharing an episode about New Year's as a time for what do I want to feel more than what I want to start doing more. And the feeling I want is that wholeness.
Yes.
And I don't want to just belong to the people in my close circles. I want to belong to this whole community in this area of Utah where I live.
Yes.
And the state as a whole and America and beyond. Like when you think of God's children and feeling like you belong to that, already your heart feels a little more whole. Like, no, that, like, why are we dividing into party lines, into whatever the demographics are?
Yeah.
What if instead we say, I don't divide.
That's right.
I'm a part of God's family. And that's who I have love for. Like, this is like a 2025. This is a New Year's thing now, Katie, which is so fun.
I love it so much. I think that's part of it. Just like thinking like globally in a way, and really beyond, for me, eternally. Like, we're all connected. And, however that's going to look in the end, I feel better knowing I did my best while I was here. Like, I did my best to love. And I did my best to try to love. I mean, that's the thing. Sometimes it's really hard to love. Let's be honest. It is really hard to love sometimes. Sometimes we get hurt. Sometimes people say things to us. I've had people say to me like, oh, you're so extra. Like, why do you do that? Or why do you feel the need to do that? And sometimes I don't know. It's in me. It's in me. And it's like explaining why you breathe. It's like, oh, I need to live and to survive and stuff. But I feel like brushing that aside and like really like listening to your inner compass, your inner, whatever that is, the light of Christ or the Spirit that is in you. I feel like the Spirit guides you in such a way where where you can do better, where you can be like, you know what, I actually want to do this better. And you practice it. And you just get better at it. Like God blesses you with the ability to be able to do it better because he wants us gathering. He wants us gathering. I mean, why wouldn't he? He wants us connecting. He wants us united. Like one of the very, like, I think it's the thing he says before, forgive me if I'm wrong, but it's what he says to the apostles, like, that ye may be one. I want you to be one. Like, that's actually, of all the things he could have ever said, to be united actually feels like we're going across all the borders and those pretend things that we put up, and also things that come through society and all the everything. It feels like to be one and united and caring for those different than us actually is something we should be on everyone's 2025 list.
It's the point of it all.
Point of it all.
And that is like where we really feel at home. Like the feelings that most of us want is to feel less isolated, less alone.
Yeah.
Like we're accepted, like we belong somewhere.
That's right.
And it's so beautiful. I think any good thing, anything from God, the fruits of it feed us too. And usually we start out either with a should or I'm feeling a certain way. But typically in the giving, then the receiving happens as well. And you cast out your bread upon waters and somehow it's returned back.
Yes.
I don't know how that works, but somehow the math works every time. And it's really cool because like, if I just want to receive more, just start sharing more.
That's right.
If what I'm really seeking is that belonging and the love, then what more can I give? What more can I push? Who else can I touch? Who else can I learn from?
That's right. And God is the great multiplier. He brings all of everything into your life of what you need. And so I think if you have a heart for it, like you can find a way, you know, and you can find the way to like do all the things that you want to do. Like you really truly can, and connect in all the ways you want to do. And he's going to make a way for you to be able to do it and to feel, like you said, like a part of something, and to feel that's what we all want. It really is, you know?
And I love what you brought out, that you may be called extra. Maybe people question, like, why are you doing it this way?
Yeah.
But we do all have things that we're good at.
That's right.
I can't make things as beautiful as you can. You do have a unique talent and gift. And instead of shying away from that, saying, no, I'm going to lean into that.
That's right.
It makes me happy. It hopefully makes others. I'm infusing love into that thing.
That's right.
But then the message for everybody listening is, well, where can I uniquely do that?
That's right.
That's going to look different than Katie because, you know, there's only so many unicorns around that could do it like you. But truly, like, what are the things that light me up where I feel like, oh, it's actually not extra. It's what I was born for.
Yes.
And now how can I take that and make that something where I can gather other people in?
Yes.
A silly one. I love crafty things and like have this artistic side, and loved Play-Doh with my girls and clay and crafts.
I love that.
And they're older now, and sometimes we'll still do a paint by number or different things, you know, but I have these cute little nieces that I'm obsessed with. And like, they're another outlet where I'm like, they can feel my love, and it's something that just feels so fun for me.
That's right.
And so thinking about whatever it is for you listening, how can I use those things to gather someone?
Yeah.
Because I already find joy in it.
That's right.
So why not multiply it in that way?
That's right. I mean, look at your gifts, you know, and even ask someone that knows you, be like, what do you think I'm good at? I mean, I actually think it's a really like tender walk to walk through, and actually do a little bit of searching and think, you know what, I actually am good at this. I should probably lean into that a little bit more. And like, we discover that as we go, you know, and we might even discover things we didn't know we had as we like kind of create that journey and explore new things and new territories. I love the thought of like even just coming back to that simple thought of like a meal. Okay, let's just talk about this for a second. There's such like power in gathering at the table. For whatever reason, when you are facing each other, or, you know, and you're really connecting, mealtime becomes like the great like multiplier. Think about it. Because you're breaking bread together, you're blessing or praying over that food, and then you're really, truly like, that's our touch point. At least it is in our family. You know, as often as we can have, we try to have a little family dinner. It's not, you know how it is with weeks, but we really try to make it count. And what's happening in those experiences is just the binding factor. It becomes the glue that really just connects us from, day to day. It's like, when else are we really actually connecting in a way that's like that? But we're feeling, we're eating, we're feeling as we do this. And there's just we're working to fill gaps. And like, just mealtime is the most beautiful, hospitable experience you can have every day if you choose. It doesn't have to be the parties. It doesn't have to be shopping at Walmart. It's literally just sitting with your people and connecting and finding space for listening to each other. I know some people do highs and lows. We do sweet and sours we have from time to time. One of my favorite things with my girls now, my girls are 24, 21, and 16. And we love just a girls' day. And I was so touched on the first time we did this recently when my oldest, we were just sitting at a restaurant and she just said, okay, everyone go through and I want to hear your spiritual, emotional, physical, and mental states. And I was like so touched by it. And they each took turns going around and me also. And we were able to say, hey, this is where I am physically. This is where I am emotionally and mentally and spiritually. And just to be able to go through that, it is a culture that you create. And I know that's probably something she's learned from me, but also she's now married. And I love the thought of what she's doing in her own marriage to create that, or in her extended family, her in-law family, or what she's working to do with her friends as she lives a few states away. And this is how it begins. And that gathering time that happens at mealtime is deeply impactful. And even if anyone just walks away from this, like, make mealtime count, make it count. Even if you brought in food that you ordered, you know what? No one says it has to be home cooked. No one says it has to look a certain way, but you make it count, before everyone, heads their different direction. You actually can make those times count and matter,
And I think we've all heard the statistics of, or maybe we haven't, and we should talk about them, but the importance of mealtime and like the lower rate of drug abuse and so many things that we're fighting in our current state in society. Somehow mealtime impacts that.
Yeah.
But for you to say just the simple phrase of, when else are you going to connect with your family?
That's right.
If you're not doing it at meals, the chances of everyone sitting down and talking is even less likely, because we have to eat. It's like we have something we have to do anyway that brings us together.
Yeah.
But how do we maximize that? Do you have any other tips? I love the thought of like the highs, lows, sweet sours, or your daughter's awesome example was so fun.
Yeah.
On a daily basis for families, or even if there's singles out there that are thinking like, hey, I want to get to know some people better, or older community, empty nesters, like any other tips to make the mealtime as nourishing to our spirits as it can be for our bodies?
I love it. I think it's actually just being intentional. I mean, this is silly, but I love to go out to eat on my own. All my kids are in school. If I'm out and about, I'll sit and I'll eat like a yummy salad, and I make my own time count. Like, I'm making sure my time, I'm not just like scrolling Instagram while I'm eating. No, I'm listening to something that's going to fill me in a way that it's kind of like my gathering moment, even for myself. So I feel like you multiply that with two people, it looks like a beautiful conversation. I love it when it's just my husband and I at home and we're like, hey, how's it going? And we're talking about the things that we can't often talk about when there's all the children around, And I love the thought of, one of my favorite things that my parents have done, they belong to an empty nesters group, and they get together on Sundays, and they all bow out whenever they have their designated family dinners, like once a month. But you know what? They get together and it just is so meaningful for them, and it can look so many different ways, and everything goes. I don't know. I feel like my husband travels here and there. And so sometimes our family meal times, it's just me and the kids, So I kind of have a vision of what that might look like for a single mom. And it's every bit as important. It's actually maybe even more important that I'm taking the time, because it's just me. and we don't know what they've navigated at school. Oftentimes they don't tell you.
They maybe haven't even processed it yet.
That's right.
It's just happening.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I feel like taking the time to be just making it count. Like it's literally just flipping that switch and saying, okay, I really don't have it in me to talk right now, or I'm spent, but also I love my kids so much more than I feel spent. So I'm going to be intentional. And I just think we choose it. I think we choose this. It's something we pick to do above other things.
Really good tips embedded in all throughout what you just said. And one is putting your phone down.
Yes.
Or watching something meaningful.
That's
we
right.
watched a little music video. I always do devotionals in the mornings with my kids, and had this video sent to me that I then sent to my husband who's out of town, and then watched it as the kids. And, I've just got the waterworks going and tears streaming down. And but it provided an opportunity. So we were intentional that what we were watching together to have a conversation about.
Yes.
But meals are so different when your phone's out, when you're kind of in, kind of out. So just being there, being present. I loved your comment too about praying. My family and I have had some conversations about what is the point of prayer before a meal? Are we blessing the food so it's not poisonous? Are we trying to turn something unhealthy to something that will be good for us? In a lot of prayers that we then studied, we were like, it actually most of the time is just giving thanks. It's not even saying like, bless this food. It's like, we're so grateful that we have a meal to eat, right? And taking a moment of gratitude with the people that we love or with ourselves. That's taking a moment with God to gather together again. But also there's not a lot of opportunities. We could make them. I think some other faith cultures do a better job of this than I think I do in my faith community. But taking time to pray over the people that we love.
That's right.
Mealtime creates an opportunity for that. You may be praying over the chicken, but if you take a moment to pray for the things that those around the table are struggling with, automatically the feeling in the room changes.
That's right.
Someone cares about me. She remembered that. Whoa, I didn't even know that she noticed when I mentioned that one time.
Yes.
And those are all things around this table when we gather, which you don't have to wait till a meal. I love my non-LDS Christian friends who really are examples to that of me to like, can I just pray over you? We're talking about this right now. Can I just pray over you? We don't have to be eating.
It's my favorite thing excuse. They do. They're so good at it.
I hope that all faith communities incorporate that more, that prayer is not awkward. Prayer is not uncomfortable. That's the most natural thing of all. And then thinking about just what are we talking about and what are we using that time for? And is it me focused or is it other? I think one of the saddest things I mentioned this on a podcast just recently and on social media is just my struggles with food and appearance. And if mealtime is a time where that's heightened, what a beautiful opportunity to turn that around. Like, no, I'm not thinking of myself. I'm thinking of the other people around the table. And that was actually a tip someone gave me long ago, was like, do you watch other people when they eat? Are you thinking about what you're eating? I was like, whoa. And I've started to watch back then, like watch my kids enjoy food. And it was such a funny thing. It seems so silly, but it was actually one of the most rewarding things as a mom. Like, look at them enjoy the food that I either purchased or made and I don't care either. But to have that a moment again, to just think of someone that's not you. Be thinking of other people. That's so all around the dinner table, just that one part of gathering. And you haven't even invited another family over necessarily, or maybe just is you. But that, again, you're like broadening the scope of what it means to gather and the power there. Something we talked about before was, hitting on different demographics. And how do you gather different people into your home? And you mentioned teenagers and in-law children, which I hadn't even thought about before. Can we dive into that a little? Give some tips and ideas there?
I mean, I'm still learning, and I wish I had it all figured out. None of us do, but I'm practicing. And I do feel very much like, I feel like gathering teenagers, you have to really meet them where they're at, And so, I mean, I am the type that's like puts on the big themed birthday party and invites them in and all of that. And so many of their parents don't do that. So they're all like, oh, they love that, but that's not going to speak to all of them. And so I think oftentimes it's just on the day-to-day with teenagers. It's like, come on in and should we get some pizza? Or that type of thing. It's like where I didn't plan anything, but just stay. You guys are welcome to, or you're welcome to do this. You're welcome. I think part of that, just where they feel so like loved, like it's okay for me to be here. No one's mad that I'm here. I'm able to be here and be a part of. Now, this is kind of a fun story. So my mom, I was the youngest, and my mom had me when she was 38. And I mean, she was raising a grandson by this point. So I had kind of like a little brother move in like when I was 12. But I remember my mom making a really significant effort with me, with my friends. And because I had this little brother, and he was, a really hard little like nephew to have. And anyways, my mom I remember her like having these great ideas and throwing them out there and be like, hey, we're going to paint the basement sometime, but I think it'd be really fun if you took your friends down there and just like started drawing on the walls and just like write things. And I was like, wait, what? And this ended up being one of the most fun experiences of my high school life. People would write who they, like in code, who they loved or liked or who they thought was cute. There was nicknames for people that were just so fun. Class of 96, rocks, cross, and anyone could come and write with their marker, anything. And my mom kept that like stocked, like the markers stocked. So we had them. And I mean, she had some parameters. We could only do this specific hallway, but it was both sides, top to bottom, filled. And people like still to this day, remember when your mom let us write on the wall? Something just as simple as that. You have to meet them where they're at. And my mom was really good at that. And I don't know that I've been as good, but I love that thought. I love that memory. I think what could we do that could just, really speak to them? It would be really fun, And then I think for my son-in-law, I just have one. He's so easy to love. So I think it probably depends on the in-law that comes into your family, but immediately treating them like they're your own, I think is the key. I don't know how it is in most families, but I think for many families, the in-laws always feel like the in-laws. And that's a sad, sad thing for me. And I feel like until I need to distinguish, I just feel like, which may never need to happen, they become a part of us and we treat them the same as such and have the relationship like we would with a child. I am so like heartwarmed when my son-in-law will call me and shoot the breeze. And I can call him and shoot the breeze like you would a mother and a son. And it's a relationship that you work on. Also, these things take time. You're still getting to know each other. But also, I think the second you can bring those barriers down, like, and just say, hey, you are a part of us and you are every bit as important as the other kids, I feel like you create that culture,
I love this conversation so much. I love that every time I tried to push you to give me a tip that was like, tie the bow this way, or here's how you put out food, you just brought it back to the heart.
Yeah.
Because then it becomes simple. Like, okay, for teens, where are they? Get to know them.
Yes.
What are the things that would be fun or interesting or unique? Your in-laws, just love them. Mm-hmm. Actually make them feel like they're your real son or daughter.
Yeah.
Then it really doesn't matter what you do.
It doesn't. So
it all goes back to the thing you said at the beginning. Like, it's the hospitable heart. It's the loving heart of Jesus to say, I see you where you are and I already love you right now. Mm-hmm. You don't have to do anything or pretend to be anything, or just come right now.
Yeah.
That's all I want. And like, if we show up that way and others come into our lives that way, we can host. I'm going to be a hostess.
You
Katie,
can do
you're
this.
Changing me right now. It's really fun to think about this, especially heading into the holiday, but again into next year, to think about how can I love bigger and better and welcome so many more into my heart and home. And you've made it feel doable today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
I can't wait to hear how you take what Katie taught us and create a bigger hosting heart in you. I know my 2025 is going to change because of what I learned today. If you've had perfectionist and stress signals that go off when you host like me, I especially want to tell you I love you and I'm cheering you on in this. If you love today's episode, share it with a friend who you know would love it. And remember, your gifts and heart are needed just as they are. See you next week on Lean In With Lizzy.